Thank everyone for their attendance. Before I ask for the invocation, I would like to note that our city clerk, Ruth, this will be her last officiating meeting, and doing it for a number of years. And Ruth, I know I speak on behalf of the entire city council that we love you, we appreciate you, and we will miss you.
Thank you.
Bravo!
Bravo!
Woo, woo.
All right, Ruth, now it's back to work.
I just got a Christmas present.
If we could have Reverend Todd Hayes, Senior Pastor of Suburban Christian Church, come forward. If everyone would stand for the invocation and remain standing after the invocation for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Reverend, thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for the invitation.
It's our pleasure.
Lord, we just want to thank you and praise you for these leaders, for our great city of Virginia Beach, and thank you, Lord, for just placing it in their heart to serve our city. And we pray that you will just continue to bless them each day with wisdom and guidance and direction as they seek to make the very best decisions, Lord, for the people of Virginia Beach. We especially want to thank you for Ruth and her faithful years, many years of service to our city. And we pray, God, that you will bless her. And Lord, we just want to thank you for what this time of the year is all about, this season of giving. And it just reminds us of you giving the greatest gift of all when you gave your son to us. And we just thank you for that. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again, Reverend. Really appreciate you coming down. You've got the roll call.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do I have a motion for the certification of the closed session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I'll call for the question, please.
Ooh, we got a
Oops.
Will you hit that?
It's Christmas lights,
That's a mixed
White one?
message.
Wow.
Seasonal.
and I'm okay to vote on this.
The council that can't make a decision.
I'm abstaining
Okay.
You're abstaining?
because I was not here for the executive.
All right. Everybody else is an aye.
Okay, great. Do I have
Thank you.
a motion for approval of the minutes of December 5th, 2017?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Call for the question, please.
Is it working now? It's not working. Everybody aye?
Aye.
Thank you.
Council, I'd like to read this. I want to remind everyone that the city council speaker policy that allows certain representatives of groups to speak for 10 minutes applies only to planning items, and items for a public hearing is required by state law. As to all other items on the agenda, each speaker, whether speaking individually or on behalf of a group, will have 3 minutes to speak. At this time, I'd open a public hearing on acquisition by agreement of condemnation for 19th Street infrastructure improvements.
No speakers, Your Honor.
Declaration of conveyance of excess property, District 6,
No speakers, Your Honor.
property tax exemption, Change Lifestyles Ministries,
No speakers, Your Honor.
Virginia, West Virginia chapter of the National Multiple Sclerosis
No
Society,
speakers, Your Honor.
Mino Foundation,
No speakers.
American Congress for Truth,
No speakers, Your Honor.
Modify Boundaries Neighborhood Dredging Special Service Districts, Herds Cove, and Chesapeake and Collie.
No speakers, Your Honor. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Chesapeake and Coney is Alex Creek. I'm sorry. We got Barbara Messner.
Okay, well, tell me what I got.
Barbara Mester, one speaker on the Bird Neck Road, Owls Creek.
Well, we've already said that was no speakers.
Barbara,
Did you say we
come
do
forward.
Okay, are you speaking to the Bird Neck Road?
Yes,
Okay, I'm turning this over to Mr. Vice Mayor. I did not know.
right.
Okay, if you'll do that, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead and speak.
Okay, I'm confused because you left the room the last time and you abstained last time,
That's correct, and I'll be abstaining tonight.
but
And
you're not leaving. Okay, all right. All right, great. Okay, Air Group Preserve Owls Creek Open Space. We had 12 resident speakers last Tuesday and read a statement for a 13th person. Only 2 people were in favor. One of them doesn't even live in the state. Our FOIA requests from December 1st have not been replied to fully. The city, which is also the applicant, asked for an extension. Why are you getting an extension on us getting information and we still don't have a deferral? The traffic studies don't appear to be unbiased or complete. It looks like it went from 912 Bird Neck Road to Bells Road. Bird Neck Road is 3.3 miles and it connects to a lot of homes. And the people who receive letters, I spoke to Ms. Henley for 25 minutes this past week. I appreciate her time. She said they received certified letters, but most of the people, I have one of the copies, the notices, it wasn't certified. So I don't know how you can have documentation for us if who was notified and who wasn't without certification. And also, it's my understanding, Mr. Sessoms, that you just purchased some property on Alice Creek Lane this past August, so that would be an additional conflict. Want to remind Ms. Wilson, since you weren't here, of your conflict with Town Bank. Berkshire Hathaway Realty is a fully controlled subsidiary of Town Bank. This requires a supermajority 9-2 vote. And since no one was willing to give us a deferral last time, I'm asking Ms. Kane and Ms. Abbott. I remember all of your speeches about transparency and accountability. I'm asking if you would please consider, since y'all want an extension on giving us the information, if you would please make a resolution or a motion to give us the deferral for 60 days. Thank you.
Cheryl Walsh.
She's running late. You want to go to the next?
Brandon Kesey.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Cassey, Brooklyn Court. Obviously, you met me last week. Thank you for your attention again. I want to point out that the petition is closing in on 1,000 signatures. You should be getting email updates about that. I put in 90% of everybody's emails on that. I don't know if you've received that or not. Still a couple questions for myself. How is a piece of land that's 11.93 acres, no more than a mile away from this Owl Creek land, valued at 2.2 million, and this land's only at 1.2? I don't get that. That leads into my next property value question, concern. If this devalues my property, expecting me not to remain quiet on that. How does this company make the city eligible for a VIP grant when they're claiming 9 shifts? I thought you had to be, it requires them to provide 35 hours a week for their employees to be eligible for a VIP grant. Maybe I'm not clear on that. Again, I was not notified. Ms. Messner has a certified letter. I don't know if it's certified or not, but I'd never received the letter, and I'm closer to most of the SeaTac residents that actually did receive a letter or affected by this, as Mr. Menz. I don't know if he's here or not either to talk about that. Let's see. And that's all I got tonight. Thank you for your attention.
That's all the speakers who've answered, Your Honor.
All right.
I don't know if it's better to ask at this point since it's the hearing or at the time of the application, but I do have a list, the mailing list that I was sent. Are these not sent certified?
No, ma'am, they are sent through a service, and then we have a documentation of exactly when they're delivered. We were provided that. I believe we did provide it to the FOIA office. I don't know if Ms. Messner has that yet. In addition, we had over 2,100 mailings for last week's agenda, not just only 33 or so for this item, and we document that with this service and with the exact time it's delivered.
So it's not a certified mailing list, it's another service.
It's another service.
And you do have documentation.
Yes, we do.
This is 33 rezoning mailings, and some of them, of course, were to agencies and so forth. I was trying to pick out the streets, but these go to adjoining property owners or property owners who are directly across the street. Is that correct? Is that the criteria?
Yes, and we have maps that we could provide you if you would like.
So so we don't attempt to send to, for example, everybody in SeaTac, or any other location when we have a rezoning. It's specifically those who are directly across the street or adjoining property.
That's correct.
And that's what we did in this case.
Yes.
Thank you.
See, you got it still.
Yes, John.
This is just for the city attorney. I would just like, not tonight, but to follow up on, because I know this isn't the vote about the actual application, this is just declaration, but I do think, I don't want people to walk away, that people will not get the information to the FOIA in a timely fashion before we take our final vote, because it does look somewhat, the appearance is that we grant ourselves an exemption or an extension to something. And I just want to make sure that the time between when we meet the request and the time that we do vote, that a material time elapsed to allow the people the opportunity to digest the information. It's not germane to the vote today, but it will be germane to a vote in the future.
All right, anybody else?
I'll now go to the modified boundaries of neighborhood dredging special service districts, SSD. I've got Herds Cove,
No speakers, Your Honor.
Chesapeake and Colony.
No speakers.
You got one
I'm
back
sorry,
there, I
she just
think,
gave,
Will.
I just got these,
I could only, okay.
I'm sorry. Mike,
Come on up.
I recognize it.
hey, Mike.
We welcome you.
Thank you. Chesapeake and Colony, drip, 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 here we are again. 8 more houses to come out. No due diligence. How come the city didn't know that this guy owned the land into the water? Obviously, they didn't look it up. They didn't take the effort to find out. There were 6 properties owners in Chesapeake and Colony that owned the land into the water. This gentleman refuses to give right of entry. By him not giving right of entry, which is his prerogative, 7 other houses can't be dredged. Why wasn't this discovered when the SSD was formed? We're 4.5 years down the road, the first bucket hasn't been dredged in Chesapeake and Colony. The Civic League was so incensed, and the Civic League is so in favor of dredging that they don't care about us who don't want the dredging, that they hired a City of Norfolk attorney to try to overcome this and make him dredge that property. The Civic League paid $3,000. $3,000. And didn't work. And here we are today. You already have removed, whether you realize it or not, 1 property previously. Same situation, a guy stopped the dredging from happening. There's another property owner that has 5 houses past him. The city's going to go around him and is going to dredge those 5 properties. It's supposed to be a 20 or 30-foot channel. It's going to be a 15-foot wide channel, 3 feet deep. If you're a boat person, why would you want a 15-foot channel, 3 feet deep? You might as well just use whatever boat you got now, because it certainly isn't going to help you to get a larger boat. But the city's going to do it, and these people are going to pay 30%. Taking out these 8 properties now means 41 properties that are waterfront properties in Chesapeake and Colony have been removed that should have been included in the SSD. Now we're down to 123, not 164. So who's going to pay the additional amount? The poor guys, like me, that don't want the dredging. You either ought to cancel the SSD for Chesapeake and Colony, or you ought to start again, set up a new SSD and revote. I've asked you, this is now going to be the 3rd time. Somebody needs to audit. You've got an auditor. Somebody needs to audit Chesapeake and Colony. It was done completely wrong. They got their 80% by eliminating people who were no votes. That's how they got their 80%. The last 9 people were taken out because they didn't want to participate. That sound fair to you? You familiar with the term gerrymandering? Anyway, you need to do something, guys. I'm going to be back here again, and you're going to have to listen to this again.
Thank you.
Because it ain't over.
We thank you very much for coming down tonight. Appreciate it.
Okay.
I'll
One
negative
thing-
the consent agenda, Mr. Vice
One
Mayor.
last thing you need to know about is that they're going to put 2 dredging transfer stations in Chesapeake and Colony, and I bet you nobody up there knows about it.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Consent agenda, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval under the consent agenda, and I hope I get this right.
I'm going to be right beside you, and maybe the two of us can.
Item I-1, which is ordinance to authorize acquisition in fee simple for the right-of-way and temporary and permanent easements by agreement or condemnation for the 19th Street Infrastructure Improvements Project from Parks Avenue to Arctic Avenue. Item I-2, A, B, and C for approval, which is A, change, ordinance to designate tax exemption for local properties. A, change Lifestyle Ministries, Inc. B, Virginia West Virginia chapter of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. And C, Mino Foundation. Item, Madam Clerk, please note that Mr. Moss is voting no on 2A.
Yes, Your Honor.
Item 2D, which is the application of American Congress for Truth, Inc., is on consent for denial. And Madam Clerk, please note that Mayor Sessoms is abstaining
Yes, Your Honor.
on that item. Item I-3, which is an ordinance for approval, is the ordinance to declare excess city property at Bird Neck Road and authorize transfer of the property to the Virginia Development Authority. And Madam Clerk, please note that the mayor is abstaining on that item.
Yes, Your Honor.
Item 4A, 4 is ordinances to modify the boundaries and authorize a refund of SSD levies. A, Herds Cove Special Service District, and B, Chesapeake Special Service District.
I'm going to vote no on that one.
And
No on B?
Mrs.
Yes.
Henley is voting no on that item.
On just B?
B.
Yes.
All right, item 5, I-5, is the resolution to authorize issuance and sale of the general obligation public improvement refunding bonds of $85 million to refund previously authorized and issued bonds, and that's the updated version that you received today. Item 7, which is an ordinance to authorize and direct the city manager to repay $5 million to the Transportation District Commission of Hampton Roads, Ray, Norfolk Southern right-of-way. Item 8, which is ordinance to authorize the city manager to execute an agreement between the city and Sister Cities Association of Virginia Beach, Inc. And item 9, under ordinances, is the ordinance to authorize temporary encroachment into a portion of city property known as Bluegill Inlet for Peter S. and Suzanne M. Williams, Ray, a dock at 2797 Sandpiper Road in the Princess Anne District.
Open a public hearing for planning.
Under planning for consent
I'm not going to say anything unless you...
is item J1, which is the application of Spence Crossing Properties LC at Prince Anne Road and South Independence Boulevard for a conditional change of zoning from B4 conditional PDH2 and B modification proffers to Ray removal of cease deed restriction in the Centerville District. Item J2 is for approval is the application of Bonnie Road VBLC, A, closure portion of Avenue H adjacent to 3825 Bonnie Road, and B, modification of conditions related to motor vehicle sales and autos repair at 3825 Bonnie Road in the Lynn Haven District. Item,
And I'll be abstaining on
and
that.
the mayor is abstaining on that item, Madam
Yes, Your Honor.
Item J3 is the City of Virginia Beach Department of Aquariums and Museum for a major entertainment venue signage permit at 717 General Booth Boulevard and 928 South Bird Neck Road in the Beach District. And item 4C is ordinance to amend City Zoning Ordinance 1, Sections 111 and 501, Ray, deletion of the definition of servants' quarters and add the definition for limited-use accessory dwelling, and 2, Sections 801, 901, and 2203, Ray, business and vocational schools in the office, business, and central business core district. So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I'll call for the question, please.
We're working. By a vote of 11 to 0, you have approved the consent agenda as read by the Vice Mayor, and I have noted the nay votes and the abstentions.
Now go to item number 6 on ordinances and resolutions to authorize a 2-year employment contract for the city manager. Call the speakers, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Reed Grenham,
I don't see Reed here. There he is.
We welcome you tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Nice to see you, Ruth.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Back at you.
It's nice to be here. I just came up this evening to tell you that in my business, we've been hiring a lot of amazingly qualified people. And what we've discovered in this job market, this is about the city manager's pay, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What I've discovered in this job
This is about
market,
his contract. It's not about his pay.
well, he's getting a 5% raise, is that not
No.
correct?
No.
This is just extending his contract to the same salary.
I understand there's a 5% raise
No.
included in this
No.
action?
No. There was money transferred.
Yes, I
2,000.
think the city attorney may have a different opinion of that, Mayor.
Rod, can you address
Contract
changes,
marked
please?
up.
His compensation was set by an ordinance that y'all adopted in the summer.
Right.
And that compensation is listed in the contract. Yes, if you look at the red line, because the contract was for 2 years ago,
But it was
there is
July
an
1st.
increase, but it was an increase that y'all voted on in July. There is no increase to his compensation in this contract.
Correct. This is just extending his contract, sir.
Well, in that case, I'll still conclude my remarks.
Conclude?
You all get to hire the city manager as your employee, and I think these salaries are sort of out of whack with the real world. And they're not CEOs of a private sector, they're city employees who work in public service, and they have benefits like VRS. In my line of work, I've been able to hire some amazing people for wonderful salaries who do amazing work. Setting the example for trying to be constrained and perhaps reining in the spending of our city government, you have an opportunity is before you keep extending these contracts to go out and look at the free market and see what you can get for a more reasonable amount of money. So I would just encourage you, just as we're doing in my business, to keep the cost of our labor down for the services that we provide our clients, you should be setting that example. And rather than continuously increasing and paying someone more than the Secretary of Defense or the Governor of Virginia to run our city, perhaps we could do better, and you guys would have the chance to set that example. And nothing against you, City Manager. I'm just saying that all too often we just keep growing and growing in what we pay, and we ought to be looking at trying to go the other direction, particularly when you've got so much talent in the job market. And that was really all I wanted to say. I would encourage you to go in that direction, because he is, in fact, your employee.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other speakers?
Yes, Your Honor. Diana Howard.
I know we're glad to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas to you.
Thanks. I also was under the impression we were giving him a raise today, so. But anyway, I went on the internet and I was looking at what the average salary is for a city manager, and I went to the National League of Cities, and the average is $106,000. And I also found out there was like Los Angeles, the city manager there makes $262,000. And they have a population of 4 million people. That's like 8 times ours. So maybe we should like look at caps on, you know, some way of reining in the prices we're paying for, you know, our higher level employees. And it's not that I don't think he's probably an excellent city manager, but, I mean, you know, we do have concerns on how we spend our money. And I thought, you know, we should like look at that. Also, I wanted to know, because I know you're all happy with him having all the city people jumping through hoops to get all the tourist projects and everything gone through, but our main concern, you know, is with the stormwater projects, and he used to be in charge of the Public Works Department. And one of the things they did in our last budget, besides raising our taxes, right, for full-day kindergarten, which they didn't need all the money, and keeping the light rail taxes, which we got like 1 cent of that to go to the stormwater. But we also shifted 34 personnel from Public Works over to stormwater. So how much of of that money actually went to stormwater? So I had seen in the paper where they were, you know, doing a remake of what happened with stormwater back in Matthew, and Mr. Leahy had said that if we had kept up with the stormwater projects back from the 80s, because you knew this was, you know, a problem back in the 80s, but nothing got done with it because other things took priority. And I know that stuff is on the agenda to be done, but priorities can come up. If we had kept up with the dredging and we had done that work and everything, we could have eliminated quite a bit of that flooding. So that's what I would really like him to work on, and not all these tourist projects. And the VBDA. Could you replace Mike Levinson? Does this man not understand conflict of interest? He did it again last week, right, on that project there. Is somebody in charge of that? Is city manager, are you in charge of that? Or is, I know they put those people on there, but who is the one that keeps them under control and tells them what they're supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do, and when they do something wrong, correct them? Who does that? Anybody?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Merry Christmas. Next speaker.
Virginia Wasserberg.
We welcome you tonight.
Good evening. Mazel Tov. Tonight's first night of Hanukkah. So happy Hanukkah, you guys.
Happy Hanukkah to you.
We're Messianic Jews in my family, so I wanted to say that to you. I did want to speak on the renewal of city manager's contract for 2 years. First of all, I agree with the stance that a city council appointed employee should not have a contract, but it should be under the discretion of the council to remove that employee at any time, and it shouldn't be under contract. And city manager position is the only position that is under contract. So that's a little bit odd. Second thing would be, I would like to speak to some actual specifics that the city manager put in the FY 16-17 budget. One specific would be CIP 7030,000, which is the reoccurring flooding and sea level rise project. That CIP got 0 funding for this past budget cycle, and it got 0 funding for the planned budget cycles that were in the CIP. It did have $3 million that was given to it back in 2015, and then there was an $850,000 coastal resiliency grant that was applied towards that. So that brings it up to $4 million to study sea level rise in our city. And if you're like me, you've been to a couple of forums in our city the past couple of weeks, which I have been to, on sea level rise. And if you're like me, you've been very disturbed at the information that you've seen at these forums when it comes to the destruction that sea level rise is projected to have on our city. And I'm very disturbed that our city manager would not plan for that at all in the future of our budgets and wouldn't put any money into that in our current budget. Now, yes, we already have $3 million in the $850,000. But I ask you, is that enough? Is $4 million actually enough to study sea level rise in the great city of Virginia Beach? And I'm going to say no. from what I'm learning on it. And $4 million isn't just enough just to study it, but it's not enough to fix the problem, because now we're in phase 2 is what they're telling us. And we have no money to go into phase 2. We have $850,000 from a grant and $3 million from something that came out in 2015. And if that's the city manager that you want to renew a 2-year contract for, then I want to remind you that some of you are up for vote in 2018, and all of us will be watching that.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
That's all the honor.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry,
I'll go if I'll.
You know good and well I'm going to have to say
I
something.
gotta say something too.
That amount is to study the sea level rise. But as a part of this, I think it's phase 3, we're going to be given the recommendations for what we have to do to address it. And that is the time when we're going to be appropriating more money, because that's the time that we're going to be told what we have to do it. So I think that amount, Mr. City Manager, is simply for the study. And as a part of the study, the 3rd phase is going to tell us what more we need to do to implement it, and then we'll be looking at what more money we need. And at that time, that's when we'll be addressing that.
You are correct.
Okay.
Oh, the other thing I just want to say, and I don't think there are many cities that are addressing sea level rise to the extent we are, and stormwater to the extent we are, with confirmed commitments of funding. And I don't believe there's a better city manager in that area of expertise than the one that we have. And I've been saying that for a long time, and I think this council supports that. His background at the Army Corps is exceptional in being able to have the ability to deal with these type of issues. And as such, we are thankful along those lines for those talents. Yes, sir.
First of all, I don't think this is probably the right forum to critique performance law. I won't go into those areas.
Sure.
But I would like to comment on a few things that said and then come back to the contract. Someone asked about who supervises the Virginia Beach Development Authority. This council does not. Unfortunately, we get to appoint them, but they are a state independent agency and are subject to the oversight of the state. We can't even ask them to resign, interestingly enough. Or we can't make them resign, I should say. As to who polices conflict of interest, the Yorktown Commonwealth Attorney is the one who's currently charged to investigate the one charge and possibly 3 others. If you know of other instances and share those with the Commonwealth Attorney of Yorktown, I'm sure he would like to have that evidence, but that just tells you factually who's responsible for the supervision of their performance under state law is not the city council. It's an interesting relationship, but they are a state entity, and once they are appointed, they act independently in terms of their actions, and we may not like it, but please do contact your General Assembly members. I wouldn't be disappointed if they went away. But to the other point about contracts and about the whole issue, I think it is well noted that none of our other appointees do serve with contracts. I do know it across the country it is a standard, but I think it's a bad standard. I don't think just because everybody else does it, we have to do it. I think our parents probably told us that often about our neighbors and how what got to do with the kid and said, yeah, but you don't live there, you live here. And we have a different standard here. There's not a single member that serves in the cabinet of the United States, much more responsible jobs than here, who serves with a contract. They serve at the pleasure of the president. There's not one that serves for the governor with a contract. They serve at the pleasure of the governor. They don't get severance packages. They don't get big buy out your contract like football coaches do. Now, that's just life is. I don't believe in contracts. I've never voted one since 1986, and I've served off and on during that time. I've never voted for a contract. I think the compensations are in excess of what is required. Some people say it's what the marketplace bears. Well, sometimes it's what you said as the marketplace you're willing to pay. And the difference between public service and what is that. I have no doubt that the definition of public service, from college presidents to football coaches to CEOs of nonprofits, and I wish everybody who makes a donation to a nonprofit would go onto the IRS page and see the salaries of the CEOs. Nonprofit does not mean always low pay, and people probably should adjust their contributions accordingly. But I do think that we set a bad precedent. And I'm not voting for this contract. I've not voted for one of them since, for Mr. Spoor, or Mr. Watts going back to 1986, or Tom Muhlenbeck going back before that. That's even before the mayor was on council, even Mike Jones was not on at that time. Didn't vote for him, because why? In principle, people that serve for a legislative body doing this kind of job should serve at the pleasure of this body, and it should not cost the taxpayers money to sever their service. I don't think General MacArthur got a severance check when he departed as a five-star from Korea, but because this is public service, and there is a risk in public service, but it is an honor and a privilege to serve, and I will be voting no.
Any other comments? I'll call for the question, please.
By a vote of 9-2, you have approved the contract for the city manager.
Thank you very much. I now go under planning, City of Virginia Beach orders to adopt and incorporate the interfacility traffic area and vicinity master plan dated September 2017 into the 2016 Virginia Beach Comprehensive Plan.
I have several speakers, Your Honor. Reed Grenham.
Be up again. I think you'll be up again. We welcome you back.
Thank you, Mayor. First time I've ever given Ruth something to pass out to you all. Good evening, members of City Council. I've read all 78 pages of this. I've prepared all kinds of information. Last Sunday I drove to every single location. But since it's the Christmas holiday, I thought I would sort of change it up a little bit. I'll read you my letter to Santa, addressed to Santa at the North Pole. I'm giving you a copy of it tonight. Dear Santa, Mom and Dad want to get me a huge ITA for Christmas, and I don't want one. Who wants a bunch of new development, parking garages, office buildings, a solid waste transfer station, and more debt to pay off, like forever? Not me, Santa. Sure, that North Landing Park with the Albemarle watershed sounds great.
Thank you.
But I don't really need it. What I need is for my neighborhood to not flood anymore, Mr. Hanson. And what the heck is passive recreation anyway? So Santa, please don't let City Council get me an ITA for Christmas. Santa, they don't even know what it costs yet. Now, here is my real Christmas list. Aside from peace on earth and goodwill to all, I want my government to support a free market and not try to pick winners and losers. I want lower taxes, not more taxes. I want less debt, not more debt. I want my local government to get out of the real estate development business, Mr. Davenport. I saw you during the informal session. Please spread your magic fairy dust and have City Council defer voting on the ITA until citizens know more about it, until we have cost estimates to tell the people how much we've spent so far. How much will all this new stuff cost? And most importantly, who is going to pay for it? Santa, once the City Council has all of this cost information and they bring this ITA back for a vote, please have City Council break it up into 10 separate agenda items and vote on each one separately. Santa, please ask Rudolph to guide their sleigh tonight. Bundling all these things together in one vote forces us to vote for bad stuff along with the good stuff we want to vote yes for. And the last thing anyone wants, Santa, is for our City Council to act like Congress. So please, Santa, can you make City Council defer the vote and let us discuss this massive change until we have enough information and our citizens can provide you with better input as our elected representatives. Thank you, Santa. I've been a good boy this year, and I hope you bring me a Christmas present that I really want. And no, that's not a raise for the city manager. Wait, I got a present from the ITA. Whatever would it be? Let's see. Wow. Oh, look, a blank check from Virginia Beach taxpayers. I wonder who's going to get to cash this. Developers, bankers, real estate agents? Don't know. What is this? A huge bill for beach taxpayers. How much is it? Well, I don't really know because we don't know how much we've already spent for the 2,588 acres we've already
We
purchased.
thank you very much for your comments. You've run out of time, and Merry
lastly,
Christmas, Santa.
a bag of gold, and I wonder who gets this.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and Merry
Right.
Christmas.
Next speaker, please.
Michelle McSweeney.
Who's the next speaker?
Michelle McSweeney.
We welcome you.
Good evening. My name is Michelle McSweeney, and I live in the Little Neck area of our city. I'm here tonight to ask you to defer your decision to begin development of the interfacility traffic area. The 2,500-acre ITA was established to keep Oceana Naval Air Station from being closed, and there is no immediate need to create more residential or office spaces on this property, especially since the Navy practices touch-and-go exercises from Oceana to Fentress. How can you tell Virginia Beach residents who have had their homes flooded repeatedly over the past few years that they have to wait possibly 15 years for our drainage issues to be remediated, but then have the nerve to spend millions on this project? Considering the size and range of this ITA project, wouldn't it seem prudent to defer your decision to begin to go forward with these plans until after more pressing needs in our city are met? I attended the October 10th public hearing on the ITA and noticed, much to my surprise, that not only were there no financial information given, but the architects present admitted this plan was based on light rail, which the residents of Virginia Beach voted against. I hope you'll consider deferring your decision to begin work on this project until it is disclosed to the public exactly who is going to pay for all of these things. We just had our real estate taxes raised under the guise of funding all-day kindergarten, even though a $20 million overage was found in the school board budget, and all-day kindergarten still is not fully funded. Please consider holding off on this project until at least all the cost is explained fully to the public, and at that time, please allow each project to be voted on separately. Thank you.
For your comments. Next speaker, please.
John Kuchta.
We welcome you tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You may not be as accommodating after you hear my remarks, but I'm frustrated in as much as I run a small business, you guys run a bigger business. But if someone walked in and told me, John, you've got 1.3 billion with a B, in unfunded pension liabilities, I'd probably faint or whatever. But that's what you folks are presiding over, a 1.3 billion underfunded pension liability. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it doesn't matter. Like, maybe we could print some money, but that hadn't worked out for the federal government. I don't think it's an option here. So somebody wants to clear this up for me. Maybe I'm mistaken, but that's a lot of money, $1.3 billion, and yet we're talking about putting roads into this new ITA, subsurface drainage, whatever infrastructure improvements are going to be necessary, but we don't have our pensions fully funded? That seems to be skewed. I would ask that you use some time to reflect on, deferring a vote on this ITA, and for us to get our house in order, get our neighborhoods to where they drain. These are neighborhoods they're flooding if there's a 20% forecast of rain. It's crazy. And the pension fund is completely, 1.3 billion, that just seems outrageous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Melissa Wise.
Who?
Melissa Wise.
Melissa Bly.
Wise. Diana Howard.
Diana, we welcome you back.
I didn't know anything about this until recently. I went to that last formal public input session on it. Until I seen this, it was like given to me. It was like, it's just sitting there. I even tried to look at the Princess Anne Independent News online to get this article and couldn't find it, but here it is. Anyway, why would we want to turn the municipal center here into a town center? That's what this was saying here. It was going to be like a mixed-use development. We're going to take all the parking lots around here, get rid of them, put apartments there, you know, shopping centers, and little shopping plazas, restaurants and stuff, put the houses on top of them or whatever, so that the employees can work and live here, you know. And I was like, wow. And then we would build a parking garage, of course. That's what taxpayers always do. We have to pay for parking garages. So I thought, well, we couldn't bring the municipal center, the city hall to town center. We'll just bring town center here. So I thought that was a really silly idea. And a lot of this land in this ITA is wetlands, and it's soil that, you know, doesn't drain very well and everything, so why would we develop down there? There's also a school in this thing, right? It doesn't say what school, but it says school. So I'm like, for who is this school, and is there a development being planned close by to put a bunch of houses and everything in this land that is kind of like wetland, and you wouldn't want to be putting development there? With, you know, poor drainage and everything, don't we have enough areas in Virginia Beach that we still need to do stormwater management on, rather than put new development there where we have to do more stormwater management? This will be, you know, areas that are going to like flood other areas. We only have so many places to drain. And even one of the planners had put an article in here about how she was concerned about this urban development being done in this ITA. So just really concerned about that. So if you can like defer this would be great. Thanks.
Ken Cord.
We welcome you, and thank you, Diana.
Earlier this year, I stood before council and said that your arrogance would be your downfall. To be more exact, I said it was going to be your Achilles heel. I've been proven right. You spend the people's money on your wants and desires and your legacy instead of the people's basic needs, roads, bridges, drainage. That's okay. Y'all keep doing what you're doing. The reason being, you're actually waking up the people to government insanity. The developers in the 70s have already tried what you're about to do, and somehow y'all are not even fazed by their failure. Tom Leahy showed old maps or aerial maps of Windsor Woods and Princess Anne Plaza at a Civic League meeting at Bow Creek Rec Center. The information detailed the water lines, farm fields, and what neighborhoods existed. So to Ms. Wasserberg, thank you. While I may not have Facebook, your videos continue to make their way to me, especially last night. The information you revealed is gobsmacking. I had no idea Acredale was also known or names for dirt or the soil that we're on, which is also a type of poor grade of dirt when it comes to drainage. This explains so much. Not only does the city rest on an aquifer, but we are also sitting on land that is, you know, poor for drainage. So we're adding more problems to a problem that we as a city are grappling to get a hold on. And yet you want to compound it. It's just gobsmacking. As far as these videos, educating the people about the soil, what's going on with the pipes, et cetera, et cetera. I ask that you guys still do it. For those that have not and sat on the fence about it, get up and get active, because we, the people that keep coming here constantly, can't do it on our own. But I don't have a problem. For me, it's like throwing chum in the water, and I'm waiting to chomp down on it. So while Ms. Wasserberg, you do that, and everybody else, I'll be slamming you guys with codes and lawsuits. My name's on one of them.
Jesse Wasserberg.
We welcome you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
In the spirit of celebrating Jesus' birth, I'm reminded of one of Jesus' parables in Matthew 25, where it's the parable of the talents. And to paraphrase, the master gives 3 servants some investment capital, and they go off and they invest it. Except one of them just hides it in the dirt and doesn't do anything with it. When he comes back, the 2 of them who made money, he says, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And then the other one, he says, "You wretched servant." And I think this parable really speaks to stewardship. I think that we have not been great stewards of our city of Virginia Beach. And one of the things that stands out to me specifically is our stormwater maintenance program, or lack thereof. Having us, the populace, be stormwater inspectors to inspect the pipes and have to report that is not a maintenance program. We cannot be expected to do that. We're not certified, we're not trained, but yet there's no regular maintenance happening. So until that happens, how can we possibly be good stewards? And if we can't be good stewards of what we already have, why would we keep developing more? Why would we go out and say, hey, we need to go build this new area in the ITA? Why would we go and look at a pier or a wave pool? We can't deal with what we've got now. So we're just compounding the problem, because now we're gonna have to deal with stormwater somewhere else. Well, we can't deal with it 2 miles away from town center. That's terribly frustrating. And we need to look at how we are actually going out there and cleaning and repairing and maintaining the drains. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Virginia Wasserberg.
We welcome you back.
Thanks to Reed for this document, which is the interfacility traffic area and vicinity master plan, which is the draft. I wanted to bring your attention to what is page 14 on this draft. And it talks about the soil types, which someone has actually already spoken of. It does say that the soil types in the ITA are very poorly drained, frequently flooded, and that community development is not well suited for this soil type due to issues
Ma'am,
of...
I'm not being fair to you. I'm not going to cut off your
I'm
time.
sorry.
The clock's going to be reset. Thank you.
Okay.
Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was wondering. But it does say that community development is not well suited for this soil type due to issues with the seasonal high water table. Today, you guys had a workshop. I listened to it. And Ms. Henley, thanks for standing up for your district and the flooding that goes on down there. And this is in your district. This is below the green line is where this plan takes place. And it is in a area of the city that, Ms. Henley, you did say, is poorly drained and has a high water table. And yet, Mr. Davenport, you took up for the development community when it comes to that. And maybe we're in the business here in Virginia Beach of development. I don't know. I kind of tend to think that city government should not be in a business, but, that's up to you because you're running the city. But this just can't happen. This is a bad plan. It's a bad plan. Reed's already told you there's no cost analysis for this plan. And for you to implement this into your 2016 comprehensive plan and to begin to study it and develop a cost analysis means you're going to take away time, attention, and finance from other projects in the city that need that time, attention, and finance. Other mitigation projects that aren't funded. Other mitigation projects that are areas that are flooding and they're not fully funded. You can't do that. You just can't keep doing that. And yeah, maybe you're in the business to develop. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but this is wrong. This is just totally wrong because you don't want to develop a community in an area that is not well suited for this soil type due to issues with the seasonal high water table. You can't keep building houses and you can't keep building shops and you can't keep building things in areas that flood, because when you do, then you have to implement extensive and expensive flood mitigation projects which come on the taxpayer. Windsor Woods is going to cost $130 million. Public Works stood in front of you earlier this year and said there's $600 million worth of flood mitigation projects in our city right now. City manager brought it down to $300 million. Why add more? It's time to stop this madness. It's time to go back to the drawing table on this stuff and say, guys, if you're going to give me something, give me a cost analysis with it. But don't give me something and then spend taxpayer dollars on a cost analysis later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Tim Worst.
Good evening. We welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come up here and speak. It's a hard act to follow. Speaking on the ITA, we're discussing 2,588 acres. A lot of land, 8 different projects. My first thought is why could why could you not vote on each project individually and take them on one at a time? My other thought is Mr. Moss had stated that it's not feasible to do these projects without taxpayer subsidies. At least he thinks that's what may happen. Why not allow the private sector to take this over? Why not allow the private sector to take over and to develop land just like they usually do? Why do we have to be the ones to jump in there as the city? I don't know if everybody in the room thinks this, but it seems when a developer takes over, it's somebody that you guys might know, somebody that you guys might be related to, somebody that donates a lot of money to your campaign.
And you're talking about the ITA right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The $1.3 billion in unfunded liabilities. Detroit has like several billion, but I would not like to be another Detroit. It's been mentioned about the 15-year drainage. There's a lot of money, I think Ms. Washburn just mentioned, that is needed to fix our drainage. All this flooding that's going on. I just think that voting on and trying to pass 8 projects with one swift vote, having no idea how much it's going to cost. We go on a measly spring break every year, and we budget that out for 1 week. And we're looking at 8 projects for 2,600 acres. And you're just going to vote on it and approve it like that. I think you're better than that. Actually, I know you're better than that, and your consciences are better than that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Miller?
Yes,
Would
ma'am.
you please tell me what the 8 projects that we're getting ready to build are? Because I don't know anything about any of them.
I don't know their names
Well,
offhand
please
either.
tell me, if we're going to continue to tell people that we're passing something that's going to build 8 projects, I would like to know what they are.
Well, that's a great question. I know that one board, and I don't think that board that you have, is that listed on there? They're listed on that board
Well,
that
I'd
you
like
have
to know
there.
what they are.
They're in the 87-page study that you and I talked about at the table.
Well, let me tell you about that study as soon as all the
Can we have all the
speakers are
speakers finish, and then we will.
And I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for your
Barbara
time.
Messner.
Barbara, we welcome you.
Henley, your horns are showing. You are so rude to people, that is outrageous.
Well,
Stay to the
Okay.
subject, please.
That is the subject. We're trying to speak and we're trying to be civil.
I was just trying to get the information, Barbara, because
Right.
I've listened to so much misinformation. I'm about to explode, and I
Oh,
just
well,
wanted
please
to know
do.
what
We
those
would
8
enjoy
projects
something
were.
different for a change.
Okay, all right.
Okay. I would especially. Okay, the city has, thanks to Ms. Marsh, who's excellent, it's $1.384 billion the city has in unfunded liabilities. That's for the city workers and the school employees. And the state, under McCullough, who helps your best buddy that you helped get elected, you and Paul Frame, since he took office, the state has $1.5 billion with a B budget shortfall. And most of that is going to all these fun little Virginia Beach economic development projects that have yet to make any money. Okay. You keep taking out new debt, and I didn't watch the, you have so many meetings, informal briefing, et cetera, when Ms. Phillips, is Ms. Phillips here? Patty Phillips, the finance director? She was supposed to provide the 2017 audited financial report. Curious how the bond rating's doing, and we'll have to look at that. But the other thing I would really appreciate, and I don't know if Ruth wants to do it, but a lot of people don't come to city council, and it would mean so much to all of us if you could just say a couple words on the record.
A couple words about what?
Oh, since this is your last official meeting, just to say
You're
anything
talking about the ITA bar?
I'm finished. I'm making that
Thank you
comment.
very much for your comments. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for staying in the room when you shouldn't.
Next speaker.
That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Ms. Finley, would you like to respond about the ITA?
I
You're
will
probably
do
one of the
my
most
very
knowledgeable
best.
people that spent a lot of time on it.
I apologize if I appeared to lose my cool, but I just couldn't stand it another minute. When people are standing here before us telling us that we're about to embark on some major development plan, and there are 8 projects that we're about to undertake, and that is simply not the case, I just had to say something. The ITA is not a creation of the city. It's a creation of Oceana during the BRAC process, when it was named the Interfacility Traffic Area. That's what ITA stands for. The Interfacility Traffic Area is between 2 facilities, Oceana and Fentress. And the Navy was very concerned that there be no more houses in that high noise zone because they didn't want to have more people living there who would complain about the noise of the jets flying between Oceana and Fentress. And so during the BRAC process, which occurred around 2005 or thereabouts, this ITA area was designated the Interfacility Traffic Area. Well, as a part of the BRAC process, as we all remember, one of the conditions to keeping Oceana was that the city would spend $15 million a year to purchase property, first in the accident potential zone, but later it was also expanded to include the interfacility traffic area because the Navy was so concerned that residential development not occur there. And that's why there has been the purchase of those couple of thousand acres in the interfacility traffic area to protect Oceana and to protect the flyway between Oceana and Fentress, because that's the outlying field and will continue to be the outlying field for Oceana. Well, the problem became, okay, if you have suddenly said to all of these property owners between Oceana and Fentress in this area that you can't put any more houses there, which had been what was recommended in the comprehensive plan of the early 2000s, what are you going to be able to do with your property? And so the first ITA plan was developed and adopted and put in the comprehensive plan in 2011. So this is not a new plan that we're just coming up with and just putting in the comprehensive plan. It was first adopted and put in the plan at that time. Well, that was at the time we were only just beginning to find out that we could use that BRAC money for purchases in the ITA. So we needed to, at this time, look at what had been adopted in 2001 and 2011 and put in the comprehensive plan and what occurs today, what had changed. Well, the city became the owner of a lot of those properties by willing sellers asking the city to buy their property because they didn't know what they could do with it that would be satisfactory. And so that's how come the city has purchased these properties. One of them was a very large parcel known as the Brown Farm down here on North Landing Road that had been owned by a private entity, and so that earlier plan had recommended that it be for office development and so forth. Well, now that the city owns it, that's no longer a necessity. And so what we needed to do was to address how could these properties be owned or be used now that would be in compliance with what the Navy wants, and also in compliance with what would work otherwise. And so that's what this update does. Now, if you had attended those earlier stakeholder meetings, you would know that this particular planner uses a very good process, starting with the blank sheet of what's there and then overlaying the existing conditions. So they overlaid, where are the poorly drained soils? Where are the drainage areas? Where are the creeks? And after they get all of these overlays in place, then you say, well, an awful lot of this area does have a lot of sensitive land. It is not suitable for structures. So where are the areas that do have the good soils and could be developed with structures? Well, one of them just happens to be along Princess Anne Road at the place where we're planning to put the biomedical park. So now that shows up in this plan as being a biomedical park. But over there near the North Landing River, where it is swampy, where it's low, they're not recommending any building in there. No, it should stay unbuilt upon. It should stay in a passive park, which is the Rock Church property that we purchased with the Navy, undeveloped. And those areas that are natural should stay natural, and that's what this plan says. That area that used to be the Brown Farm that did have all of this planned development for an office park should stay agricultural. That's what this plan says. This plan is not saying that we should go in there and begin development. It's saying just the opposite. It's saying on these sensitive areas, we should not do those things. We should come up with uses that are compatible with the land and with the area. Trails, blueways, those kinds of things. But there are some areas that could be further expanded into our athletic villages with more baseball parks, more trails. And we did look initially in 2011, it's already in the comprehensive plan, in the ITA plan that was put in there in 2011, that there is an area about central of that where we could look to consolidating some of our waste management facilities. That's not new. That's already in the plan. And these kinds of things, it's the correct information that we really need to get at. Yes, Acredale is a soil type. We've got a whole bunch of soil types in the city of Virginia Beach, and we do have a lot of them in the southern part of the city that are poorly drained soils. And so those soils, yeah, we stay out of them. As far as building roads, no, we're not going to start building any roads in there right now. It's just that when we no longer plan to build the Southeastern Expressway as a Southeastern Expressway, we had to take that off of our Master Street and Highway plan. And we had to say, well, what should we do with this road this area as a road? And so this plan updates the fact that we're not going to be building the Southeastern Expressway there, but we probably will need to have some kind of arterial at that point. So no, this is just updating our Master Street and Highway plan. I mean, some of these roads have been a line on the map for many years and will continue to be a line on the map for many years. Just because we're putting this in the comprehensive plan as a future development vision, that's all this is. We are not beginning any projects. And as far as that school, well, over here where we have agreed to give the property for the Veterans Care Center to the state for a Veterans Care Center, that property was going to be a school. We had designated that property as an ultimate elementary school or middle school. So we simply need to find a place where we can replace that particular property with a school eventually. And I think maybe the schools are thinking at some point they might want to update the North Landing Elementary. And so in that general area, It just says we need to have a school at some point to replace the school property that we now are going to have a Veterans Care Center. So we are not getting ready to build any projects. We are not getting ready to build any roads. We're certainly not going to be putting any houses in this area where the noise zones are greater than 65 decibels, because that's where the Navy doesn't want people living, and they don't want a hotel there either, because they don't want anybody sleeping there to call at 2 o'clock in the morning when the jets are flying between Oceana and Fentress. That's the whole purpose of the ITA. And I probably have not answered some of the other points, but we would be here all day.
We have a motion.
And you've had enough from me, and so I'm going to move that we approve the ITA
motion. Do I have a
updated
second?
plan.
Second. Any discussion? I'll call for, oh, yes, sir.
I'm voting no. And for all the things that Barbara said are true, I take no exception to what Barbara said. I mean, I think she was right on target. When people are factual, they're factual. But my objection is more substantive than that. If you go to page 42 of the document that was in our agenda package, and this is the position I've had on all SGAs, so this is not new. I don't believe, as a matter of fact, when this presentation was made about the development around the municipal center, you may recall, Mr. Mayor, you said, I don't think the market will, that's too small a parcel for that to happen by private investment alone. Go back and watch the informal session. But on that page, it says, the creation of a true mixed-use campus is the long-term vision for the city of Virginia Beach. It's got pictures. Well, that's not a vision I agree with, so that's, and unfortunately, we're not voting on this thing section by section. If we broke it up, I would vote for some pieces. But this piece that talks about hotels and private offices and this cluster, and you saw the diagrams when they presented this thing, this village concept. I realize that's just a concept, but this document validates that as the vision of this city council. It's just not a vision I share. But if I could vote for if this was broken up so I could vote for the pieces, but this particular piece, since this is all or nothing, cannot happen in the free market would not happen without taxpayer subsidies. It won't generate, it doesn't meet the critical mass to get there. So while it's not today, and I agree that's not on here, but lots of things are on the SJs, but we keep coming back, and with City View 2, you name the project, to make it happen, we have to have tax expenditures and tax rebates. But it's this vision that I object to, and that's the basis for my no vote.
Thank you. Call for the
Your
question.
Honor, 2 seconds, if I could.
Please.
There's just a little donut hole in all of this area that doesn't have the high noise zone, that there could be some residences. And that happens to be just right around this area, and I think what they were doing was acknowledging that if sometime in the future there needed to be some housing, it would need to be in this little donut hole. And it's very small, and we've about filled it up to this point, but that's what that does.
Okay, I got a motion and a second.
Your Honor, all the votes registered except yours and the vice mayor, so if I can have a verbal, we'll be all right.
Aye.
All right, so there'd be 9-2.
Thank you. I have ordinances to amend and revise the following sections of the policy document of 2016 Virginia Beach Comprehensive Plan use map pertaining to special economic growth areas, Section 1.4 parentheses and transition areas, Section 1.6 military installations and support, Section 2.4 economic vitality.
Your Honor, so that was included in the same ordinance, so there's one vote is all.
That's how I took it also.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate that.
I didn't push the button.
Are there any appointments? Okay. Is there any unfinished business? Any new business? Council, I want to wish everybody up here a wonderful Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. To our wonderful city staff, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. To our citizens of Virginia Beach, those in the audience, Happy Holidays and Merry Christmas.
Hanukkah.
Ruth, would you like to say anything, this being your last evening?
Yay, Ruth! For 39 years, 1.5 months, you've been very gracious, and I've been very dedicated, and it will be a pleasant memory, and I thank you for every one of them.
Thank you. Hey, Ruth. All right, council, I'm going to conclude this, but don't leave. Julie's coming up here to give us quick directions.